Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we break down history, power, money, and psychology in a way that actually makes sense. No boring lectures, no dusty textbooks, just the real mechanics behind how the world was built. And today, we're talking about an empire that almost ruled the entire planet. Not metaphorically, not dramatically, literally. They controlled more land than anyone in human history. They moved. You ever start something big? Like really big? Gym plan, business idea, YouTube channel, whatever. And in the first few weeks, you feel unstoppable? You wake up earlier, you move faster, people start noticing. And then slowly, something changes. You get comfortable. You assume momentum will carry you. You stop adapting. And before you even realize it, the thing that was exploding stalls. Look, that's exactly what happened to the empire that almost ruled the entire world. And no, it wasn't Rome, it wasn't Britain, it was the Mongol Empire. Here's the thing. At its peak in the 13th century, the Mongols controlled around 24 million square kilometers of land. That's roughly 16% of the Earth's land surface, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Let that sink in. In less than 80 years, they went from scattered nomadic tribes in the Eurasian steppe to ruling from China to Eastern Europe. Historians estimate that under Genghis Khan and his successors, Mongol campaigns contributed to the deaths of tens of millions of people. Some demographic studies suggest that up to 10% of the world's population at the time may have died due to Mongol invasions. That's not just conquest. That's a system moving at terrifying efficiency. So the obvious question is, how did a group of horse archers from the steppe almost conquer the entire known world? And why did they stop? Because they didn't get defeated in one dramatic battle. They didn't collapse overnight. They simply failed to finish the job. And that's where the lesson is. Most people think the Mongols were just violent barbarians. That's the lazy explanation. Oh, they were savage. No, they were strategic. Genghis Khan reorganized society based on merit, not bloodline. If you were competent, you rose. If you weren't, you didn't. Imagine implementing a pure performance-based promotion system in the 1200s. That alone was revolutionary. Their army was structured in decimal units, groups of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, allowing precise control. Communication systems stretched across thousands of miles using relay riders. They used psychological warfare before modern psychology even existed. Cities that resisted were annihilated. Cities that surrendered were spared. Word spread. Resistance dropped. It was fear as a growth strategy. Brutal, yes. Effective, absolutely. They were also masters of mobility. Each soldier traveled with multiple horses, switching mounts to maintain speed. European armies at the time moved like heavy trucks. The Mongols moved like sports cars. While kingdoms were arguing over feudal loyalties and rigid hierarchies, the Mongols were adapting mid-battle. They faked retreats to lure enemies into traps. They learned siege technology from the Chinese. They absorbed engineers from Persia. They integrated talent from conquered lands. Here's the metaphor. The Mongol Empire was like a startup with insane execution speed, fast decisions, no bureaucracy, pure expansion mode, and, like many startups, they scaled too fast without building long-term structure. After Genghis Khan died in 1227, the empire kept expanding under his sons and grandsons. They invaded Poland and Hungary in 1241, defeating European armies decisively at battles like Legnica and Mohi. Europe was wide open. seriously. If you study the timeline, Western Europe was vulnerable. But then something happened. The great Khan Ogedei died. And according to Mongol tradition, leaders had to return to Mongolia to elect a new great Khan. So the generals withdrew, not because Europe beat them, not because they ran out of power, but because internal politics pulled them back. Think about that. The only thing that stopped the Mongol advance into Western Europe was succession management, internal governance. The very structure that allowed rapid growth couldn't handle long-term stability. Over time, the empire fractured into four major khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, and the Golden Horde in Russia. They were still powerful, but now they were semi-independent. Coordination declined, unity weakened, cultural assimilation began. In China, the Mongols adopted Chinese administrative practices. In Persia, they converted to Islam. In Russia, they influenced, but also blended. The original hypermobile war machine became localized governments. Expansion slowed, innovation slowed, internal rivalries increased, and here's the uncomfortable truth: success changed them. The same hunger that fueled conquest disappeared once they owned half the world. Wealth creates comfort. Comfort kills urgency. By the 14th century, the Yuan dynasty in China faced rebellions, including the Red Turban Rebellion, which eventually led to the rise of the Ming dynasty in 1368. The Mongols were pushed back to the steppe. The Golden Horde declined due to internal conflict and the rise of Moscow. The Ilkhanate collapsed after succession crises. No single catastrophic defeat, just fragmentation. Here's what most history videos won't tell you. The Mongols didn't fail because they weren't strong enough. They failed because they couldn't transition from expansion mode to sustainability mode. Expansion and governance require different skill sets. Conquering territory is about speed, aggression, and risk-taking. Governing territory is about systems, patience, taxation, infrastructure, legitimacy. It's like building an audience versus maintaining one. Getting views is one game, keeping loyalty is another. The Mongols mastered the first game, they underestimated the second. And let's talk numbers again. The Pax Mongolica, the period of relative stability across Eurasia under Mongol rule, dramatically increased trade along the Silk Road. Goods, technologies, and even ideas flowed between East and West more than ever before. Paper money, gunpowder, printing techniques spread. Some scholars argue this connectivity indirectly contributed to the European Renaissance, so ironically, the empire that spread through destruction also accelerated globalization. But globalization cuts both ways. The same trade routes may have helped spread the Black Death in the 14th century, which killed an estimated 75 to 200 million people across Eurasia. Systems amplify everything: growth, wealth, disease, instability. So why didn't they rule the entire world? Geography played a role. The Mongol military was optimized for open steppe warfare, dense forests, tropical climates, naval warfare. These limited them. Their invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281 failed, partly due to typhoons, the famous kamikaze winds. Their campaigns in Southeast Asia struggled with climate and logistics. Naval dominance wasn't their strength. But again, that's not the core reason. The core reason is strategic overextension combined with political fragmentation. When an organization grows beyond the capacity of its communication and leadership systems, cracks appear. And the bigger you are, the more expensive mistakes become. Look, this isn't just about medieval horsemen. This is about you, about me, about any ambitious project. In the beginning, aggression works, hustle works, speed works. You can outwork competitors. You can dominate by sheer force of will. But if you don't build structure, clear succession plans, decentralized but aligned leadership, systems that function without you, the growth becomes fragile. Genghis Khan built a meritocratic war machine, but he couldn't design a permanent unified succession model that prevented fragmentation. And that's understandable. Governing millions across continents in the 1200s was insanely complex. But complexity doesn't care about excuses, it punishes weakness. So here's the real reason the empire that almost ruled the entire world failed. It mastered conquest, but underestimated cohesion. It scaled power faster than it scaled unity. It built fear faster than it built identity. And identity is what sustains empires long term. Rome built roads, law, citizenship. Britain built naval institutions and financial systems. The Mongols built dominance. Dominance is powerful, but it's temporary without deep integration. And here's the actionable part. So here's the real takeaway. Power isn't enough. Speed isn't enough. Even dominance isn't enough. If you can't adapt, if you can't build systems, if you can't hold unity when things get big, everything eventually fractures. The Mongol Empire proved that execution can change the world, but it also proved that without structure, even the strongest force fades.